Hey guys, what is going on? I am in Seattle, Washington, filming a TV commercial, but I spent yesterday watching all of Super Rugby. Here are the results. Some shocking ones, some disappointing ones, some absolute blowouts. We're going to break it all down in this video and then look ahead to the playoffs. Let's go. Let's kick it off with the Chiefs and the Highlanders. In many ways, this was the perfect warm-up for the finals for the Mooloo men, because even though they won comfortably in the end, which would have instilled a lot of confidence, the Highlanders made them work for it. Like, the men from the South really showed up, particularly in the first half before the game got away from them. So what positives can you take from this from a Southerner's perspective? Well, Fabian Holland has probably played himself into the All Blacks. The locking stocks are still thin in New Zealand. Razor Robertson could use a guy like Holland in the second row. You've also got to think Timothy Tavatavanawai has done as much as he could this season to get an All Blacks call-up. Wasn't his best game, wasn't an absolute blinder, but still very solid. With Anton Leonard-Brown injured, there is a vacancy in the All Blacks midfield. Plus, we've got to see how Jordie Barrett comes back into the fold. But here's the thing. Ultimately, the Chiefs had too much firepower. Once they got a bit of ascendancy at the breakdown, the outside backs could run wild. I think the most telling statistic was 13 line breaks to 5. It just shows that the Mooloo men had more of a cutting edge on attack, particularly with Damian McKenzie running the show. They've secured the #1 seed. They're going to be at home through the playoffs. For me, this only reinforces their status as the favorites to win it all. Well, a lot of people thought the Blues would win, but maybe not this emphatically. This was an absolutely brilliant win for the Aucklanders at Eden Park, a big turnaround from some of their messy results earlier in the season. Hoskins Sotutu spoke after the game. He said that close loss to the Chiefs actually was a big motivator and a bit of a pivot point in their season. And I can see that because they did tidy up some of the sins that you saw in that loss and others in this game in particular. At the end of the day, the variety of attack was beautiful. They went coast to coast, very uninhibited, expansive rugby. Mark Talea having his farewell at Eden Park before he goes offshore. He had an absolute blinder, almost scoring at will. Caleb Clark looked good too. But also that man, Ricky Telly. He's heading off, and he covered himself in glory. You know, the tight work was good, but let's go back to that man I mentioned, Hoskins Sotutu. To me, that was where this game was won and how it blew out. The breakdown control was much better. Dalton Papali'i and Hoskins Sotutu, very influential at the breakdown. And so ultimately, Christie and Barrett, they just had a buffet of ball to work with. I don't think they're going to get that much ball against the Chiefs in Waikato because you got Satiti, you've got Jacobson, you might have Tupou Vaa'i, who's good at the breakdown also. You're going to have all these threats around that ruck area. But ultimately what the Blues showed is they have some of the most deadly finishers in the competition, and if they have the ball to play with, they can beat anyone on their day. I'm just not sure they're going to have that much ball to play with in the quarterfinals. Well, the Crusaders got the W in Canberra. That is no mean feat, especially at this time of the year. Huge win over the Brumbies. A little bit of controversy. Some of the refereeing calls have come under scrutiny since, but what ultimately decided the game was a try from George Bell, the hooker, with just a few minutes to go. The ACT Brumbies actually had a chance to snatch the win back. An unfortunate error from Corey Toole kind of killed off the game for them. But look, this was sweet redemption for Rob Penny. He had a horrific time last year. The Crusaders didn't even make the playoffs after winning the competition 7 years in a row. So they needed this. And they haven't just qualified, they've qualified in second spot. If the unthinkable happens, if the Chiefs were to go down to the Blues, we could yet see finals action in Christchurch. But let's take a deep breath and let's watch the footy in the quarterfinals before we make any further predictions. I got to tell you, though, this was actually kind of a good game for the Brumbies and certainly for Wallabies fans. Noah Lolesio was back at 10. To me, he is the best 10 running around the competition from an Australian perspective. You have to think maybe Joe Schmidt does pick this guy. Even if he's going offshore, even if he's not going to be there in 2027, there is an argument that he is, by some margin, the best pivot in Australia. He really showed his wares beautifully in this game, taking on the line well, mixing up his options well, just that combination of flair and game management that you would think Schmidt would want to see. From a Canterbury perspective, you know, Sevu Reece looked good out there. The whole back line was relatively strong and cohesive, even missing Will Jordan at the back. But Ethan Blackadder, he played 40 minutes. It was impactful. He got some turnovers. He was very influential at the breakdown. They're going to want him to stay fit through this knockout phase of the competition. But look, guys, ultimately, huge congrats to the Crusaders. Talk about a turnaround from last year. This is looking like the Crusaders of old. Well, look, the fairy tale had to end at some point. Moana Pasifika will finish the season in 7th. Still an amazing result, considering that these guys were meant to be wooden spooners this year. Ardie Savea put in one of the best Super Rugby seasons you'll ever see. I can't think of a better one in recent memory, to be honest with you. Influential, kind of glad he gets to rest for a few weeks before reporting back to Razor Robertson for All Black duty. Don't think he's going to be the All Black captain. I think Scott Barrett is going to keep that spot. Razor's going to want continuity, but my God, he is the most informed player in New Zealand. With that said, his troops got absolutely hammered by the Hurricanes. They ran in, I lost count. I mean, did they run in 10 tries? Yikes. What happened? Well, you know, for me, I think that this game was lost before kickoff. No, I'm not saying that Moana had no shot of winning this. What I'm saying is that it all came down to bonus points. And once the Blues absolutely routed the Waratahs at Eden Park and picked up that bonus point, well, now we didn't just need a Moana Pasifika win. We needed an emphatic win with lots of tries. And that caused Moana Pasifika to throw a few loose balls, led to interceptions, led to a little bit of chaos at the breakdown. And I think ultimately that's what stemmed their momentum initially. They were playing desperation rugby. They couldn't build into the game like they normally do. They had to fling the ball around. And the Canes have just been in a clinical mood in this winning streak. And I will say, with Ruben Love at fullback and Brett Cameron at 10, they looked even more precise. Okay, this is going to be the combination going forward. Cameron has come back from injury, really shown what he can do. And look, with Karifi, absolutely a force at the breakdown along with Lachie. These guys could go deep. They could be grand finalists. Time will tell. Don't forget, there is a chance of qualifying for the semifinals, even if they are to lose. I believe they are the top ranked team outside the top 3. So that could mean that even a losing effort could see the Canes go deeper into the competition. Time will tell. There'll be more permutations to think about when we see the results next weekend. But on this kind of form, you have to say they are right up there with the Chiefs and the Crusaders in the title conversation. And lastly, another absolute thrashing, although this one was a little bit more predictable. I think a lot of you guys who subscribe to this channel called this one. The Reds put the Drua to the sword pretty comfortably. Now, the Drua did have a white-hot start, but ultimately it was that winger, Lachie Anderson, who scored 4 tries for Queensland. Pretty impressive display right there. But the damage was done up front. You just felt that the Reds had much more power at the set piece, had much more power in the rolling maul, the scrums, and the lineouts. Sure, there was parity at times, but ultimately, you just could see the effect of some of the Wallabies out there. Speaking of, Harry Wilson went off. Don't know exactly how serious it is. He looked in pain. Wallabies fans are going to hope that he is okay, that he can play through these knockout fixtures and be eligible for selection for the Wallabies. Time will tell, fingers crossed for the big man. But the Reds, look, they led this competition at one point. Let's not forget that. Still very much in the mix here. The Brumbies have kind of stolen their thunder from an Australian perspective. But as we know in the knockouts, absolutely anything is possible. Alrighty, guys, so here is how the playoffs are looking. Drop your predictions in the chat. Cannot wait to break these games down in the week ahead. Please like, please subscribe, send this video to someone who loves rugby, and I'll be back for another one real soon. signing off from very sunny Seattle, Washington, and it's not often that you get to say that. All right, guys, bye for now.